Esri.
Hey,
100
everybody.
good
Good
stories make
morning,
me
good
interesting.
afternoon, or good evening, depending on where you might be joining us from in the world today. My name is Meg Alexander. I am, as always, honored and excited to get to host another Power to Fly Chat and Learn virtual event. Today's subject, we're going to be talking about mastering relationship-driven sales and gain some insights from Esri's sales team. Now, before we dive in to the main event, I do just want to go over some quick housekeeping items with you. These will be especially important if this is your first event with Power to Fly, and if that's the case, then hi, welcome. We're so happy to meet you. Now, the love is no less real for my frequent flyers. I absolutely adore seeing your names, faces, and avatars in the chat. So thank you all so much for joining us today for our event. Now, the big thing to know, whether this is your first event or your 500th, is that participation is key. You are always welcome to participate and make the most out of the time that you're going to spend with Power to Fly and Esri today. So you are encouraged to do that in a couple different ways. You are always welcome to turn on your cameras if you'd like to share your smiling, maskless faces with us safely. But truly, y'all, no need to be Instagram perfect, okay? Just because I got fancy and washed my hair does not mean that you cannot come to us with your living room couches, your bathrobes, your messy buns. Does not matter. We just want to be here to meet you where you are. Now, if you still want to participate, but you don't want to do so on camera, that's fine. You can always chime in the chat. Audience members will not be able to come off mute today, but we want to see that chat active and hopping. So if you'd like, please feel free to head over to the chat and let us know where you're joining us from. I'm coming to you from Toledo, Ohio. This is land that belonged to the Fox, Kickapoo, and Potawatomi tribes in my area. So please feel free to let us know where you're joining us from, and if you know, whose land you're on. Now, we are recording today's event, and what that means for you is you don't have to take notes. You get to sit back, relax, enjoy the conversation that I'm about to have with our guest from Esri, and you will all get a link in about, 4 to 5 business days. Everybody that registered is going to get an email from Power to Fly. It's going to have a link to where you can rewatch this recording when we post it on powertofly.com. Now, that should be, like I said, 4 to 5 business days. We are also live streaming to YouTube. Hi, YouTube. So you could watch the recording faster if you would like by heading over to our YouTube channel. We'll share links for all of this in the chat as we go. But you can head over there and take a look at the recording. This is especially awesome if there's a resource that someone mentions or a website or something, then you can always, go back and refer to it. You don't have to worry about, taking notes while you're enjoying today's presentation. Now, don't forget, like I said, you can always check it out on the YouTube channel. There's a kind of greatest hits playlist of some of our best events are stored there. But do not sleep on the full website, y'all. That is where the master archives, all of our resources are housed there. They're entirely free for y'all to use. So please take advantage of that and check out the website as well. Now, if you want questions, if you have questions today, we're going to be going over a lot of the questions that you all asked at registration. But if there is something else that you want us to dive in deeper on, maybe there's a terminology or acronyms or something that you want a little bit more time spent on, just let us know, all right? Ask questions in the chat. I will be in there the entire time. I am happy to collect any and all questions asked, and hopefully we'll be able to get to as many as possible today. Now, don't forget, if you wrote in a question, but you're not sure if we're going to have time to get to it, send it in the chat. If you want us, let's say we're going over one of your questions, but you want to give us a little bit more detail or context, please send it in the chat. You're about to spend 60 minutes with us. We want to make sure that that time that you spend with Power to Fly and Esri is well worth it. So help me help you, y'all. Ask the questions you want to know so we can make sure that you get the value you came to get out of today's conversation. Last thing I want to say before I introduce you to our speaker is just a quick look at our code of conduct up here. It's a lot of boilerplate, but basically what it boils down to is don't be a jerk, okay? As we are networking with our fellow attendees or, reaching out to Esri team members, just make sure that we are operating from a place of kindness and respect. Now, if you've never heard of Esri, Esri is an amazing partner with Power to Fly. I'm going to let their speaker, Kelly, tell you a little bit more about them. But the big thing that you should know about this company is they've been a great partner with Power to Fly. I've gotten to help work behind the scenes on a lot of their events. And I think that once we start talking a little bit more about Esri, you will be just as intrigued by them as I was. Now, I do want to highlight a couple things here for their company page. So let me move myself around here because I just realized I'm in front of the QR code where I don't want to be. There we go. All right. So if you are curious about Esri, if anything that we're saying today sparks your interest, this is what their company page looks like on powertofly.com. Now, there's some really great aspects of this page you can utilize. I'm going to tell you towards the end of today's event some other ways that you can utilize this page to help you in your job search. But the big thing to know right now is about this follow button. So right there, it's pink. It says follow, and it is going to be kind of your silver bullet for Esri. If you are interested in working with Esri, especially if you don't really see anything, any job postings right this second that you'd love to apply to, I really recommend that you tap that follow button. What it's going to do is allow Power to Fly to keep you on Esri's radar even before you fill out a job application, but it's also going to allow Power to Fly to tell you when Esri posts new roles. So that way you don't have to keep coming back and refreshing job boards, effectively memorizing them after a couple swipes. So truly, y'all, take advantage of this feature. The follow button is present on all websites, like all company websites on powertofly.com. But just make sure that, if anything we say today really piques your interest about Esri, tap that button. It's going to do some great things for you. All right, now we have joining us today, Kelly Auman. Now, Kelly is a utilities sales team lead. She leads Esri's U.S. mid-market electric and gas sales. Now, Kelly and her team help utilities to use geography and location intelligence to grow their businesses and navigate the challenges and opportunities of this ever-evolving market. Now, Kelly joined Esri in 2004, so she has been there for 20 years in the training group before moving into business development. Now, Kelly, I want to turn the floor over to you so that way we can learn a little bit more about you and Esri before we go on. But what else would you like our audience members to know about you?
Sure. Thanks so much, Meg. So I am based in Esri, Charlotte, North Carolina office. Um, so in the Southeast, where it's already nearly like 85 degrees today. Um, as Meg said, I've been with Esri almost 20 years. I'll be hitting my 20-year mark later on this year. And in that time, this is probably my fifth job at Esri. So I've done lots of different things here, which has been super fun. And then, gosh, I think the other thing I want to share is, we're here to talk about Esri and work and stuff. But in my spare time, I like to scuba dive. So I enjoy. My dad is a big diver. My brother's a big diver. So we like to do family vacations and like to go spend some time underwater. I like it probably like 30 feet. My dad is a wreck diver, so we often have a lot of negotiations around like, I don't really want to go that deep. But that's something super fun that I like to do. Also, fun fact, during COVID, when we were staying at home, I became a pretty good, I think, at home bartender. So I'm sure we all picked up different hobbies. So that was mine during COVID.
Heck yes, I love this. Is there any drink that was like especially challenging to make or one that you really enjoy, that you kind of keep on coming back to?
Yeah, so I really like an old fashioned. So prior to COVID, I was like, I do not enjoy whiskey. It's not my thing. I don't like it. Turns out, I don't like smoky whiskey, so I do enjoy whiskey, just not smoky ones. And my signature drink is now an old fashioned, and I feel like I can make it better than when I get it out. So that's a
Oh,
challenge.
that's always the best too. I was a bartender for like 6 years, and that is always
Oh,
the worst thing of like, I know what I want. You're not going to be able to make it like that because I'm used to making it for myself behind the bar and then checking out. So like,
yeah.
I'll just have a beer,
I,
thank you.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to overstate my skills. I cannot, I'm an at-home bartender. Like I am slow. I cannot do that. Like
Most
that.
bartenders that you meet are
Yeah.
either slow or very heavy-handed because you have to be fast. So yes, 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 yes. I love this. Very cool. I haven't scuba dived in a number of years, but
Oh,
I remember going when I was like in like high school and it was
yes.
amazing.
It's
So,
amazing. It's amazing to be able to breathe underwater.
oh, it's magical. It absolutely is. Like I don't want to go to space. I want to go like I want to just like
Right.
explore the oceans. So I love it. All right, so we're going to start kicking off with some questions. Like I said, we're going to cover a couple different areas here. But truly, if y'all want us to dive in deeper on anything, please feel free to, let us know in that chat space. I'll be in there the whole time. And if you want a question asked or, comment, but you want to be kept anonymous, that's not a problem. Just DM me. You can find my name, Meg Alexander, in the drop down there. All right. So, Kelly, to get us started, we're going to talk a little bit about Esri's unique sales approach. So, of all the kind of different sales methodologies, and there's obviously tons of them, why do you think relationship driven is important for you in this role as well as for the company?
Yeah, I think for us, that's kind of part of our culture, right? So for us, it establishes, right, when we think about relationship driven sales, right, you're establishing trust and loyalty. And really, our goal at Esri is long-term partnerships, right? We are in it for the long term, right? I jokingly say like we want long-term committed relationships with our users, right? We think our technology is the best technology out there. We think it can help change the world, and we have customers doing really impressive things with that technology to help make the world a better place, right, in a variety of industries. And so I think part of our sales process is really to understand what are our customers' needs and really understand those, right? Not at a surface level, but really kind of diving deep to understand what are those needs, what are their preferences, what challenges or pain points are they experiencing. So if we do that right and we address those effectively, we can really provide tailored solutions to them that lead to higher customer satisfaction, right, and really help them meet their goals, which is what we're here to do. So by really prioritizing those relationships, I think we can create a really positive impact on the customer and help them meet their goals.
I think that's really important. Is there anything that, let's see. So when we're talking about relationship driven, obviously there's way too way too many methodologies to try and like compare to everything, right? But of some of the other methodologies that you have used, is there anything that you think is missing from the relationship driven that could be a plus to kind of combine with any of the others? Apologies, y'all, if this is a very weird question.
Yeah, I I don't think so. Like I think there's right when I think about relationship driven sales, right? It's really putting the customer first. So I think, I'm part of the sales organization here at Esri. I would say we have a unique sales culture than maybe you might be familiar with, or when you think of sales, you might sort of have an idea in your head of what that looks like. I know I did prior to joining Esri. And to be fair, when I joined Esri, like I didn't sell, like I didn't know everything I've learned about selling, right? I learned here at Esri, right? With our sales process and our kind of onboarding programs. And I think it really focuses on making our users successful. And I think that's something that our founder talks about a lot, right? That's our mission, is making our users successful. And so when we talk about selling, I'm not out here positioning products or solutions that really don't meet the customer's need, right? I'm not commission based, so I think that's a different differentiator, right? In a typical sales
Yeah.
organization. So I don't get paid any more, any less if they buy more or buy less, right? What I really want them to do is utilize what they have and be successful with our technology so that they can go and accomplish their mission. I don't know if that answered the question.
No, I think it
Okay.
absolutely does. Yeah. All right. So obviously Esri stands apart in a lot of ways when it comes to kind of the traditional sales model. You talked about, not having to deal with things like commission or have to worry about what else are things that kind of set Esri apart? Like, are there quotas? Are there, what can
Yeah.
people expect that might be different at Esri?
Sure. So we don't have quotas, and what I mean by, so we have sales goals. So I have a sales goal, right? I've part of my responsibility in business development, right, is to be revenue generating and bring revenue into the company, right, so that we can provide the products and the services that we want to our users, right, and continue to grow our product and make improvements in it. So I have a sales goal, but I don't have a quota necessarily. So by that, for those who may not be familiar, like I don't have a certain sales number I have to hit every month or every quarter. Um, but I do need to create a business plan, right? So I've got a set of accounts that I manage. I've got to create a business plan for the year and figure out, hey, how am I gonna, what's my approach going to be? How am I gonna bring that revenue into the organization? How am I gonna really make our users successful? And I would say we focus on, I would say, solution focused selling, right? Where it's really around It's not around selling like products or services, but it's really focused on solving problems and specific challenges and addressing the unique needs that our customers have. Um, we can provide right really focused and tailored solutions that deliver like real tangible value to our users, and that's super important to us. The other thing I would add to that is within our larger Esri kind of community, there's a lot of industry expertise. So I'm currently in a role where I am supporting electric and gas utilities. Um, Prior to joining our electric and gas team a little more than 2 years ago, I didn't know a lot about electric and gas. But we have a really amazing team, folks on our business development team who maybe worked in that industry before, have worked in that industry for several years, who are able to share their knowledge. We have folks on other teams, right, within Esri that we collaborate with a lot in business development who came from that industry. So I'm able to call them up or Teams them or message them and say, hey, I got this interesting thing, or what does this acronym mean? Like, I haven't heard that before. And so we've got, I would say, I'm focused on utilities, but across Esri, our team possesses really expertise across all industries, utilities, government, natural resources, transportation. So if your interest is in any one of those, right, there are amazing resources here at Esri that came from that industry and are willing to like share their knowledge with you. I think the other two things, and then that will be quiet, I promise.
Please don't ever be quiet. That's the whole point of today's event.
Is we have a really collaborative approach. So we really emphasize collaboration and partnership with our customers and within our own internal teams. We continue to work closely to understand what they're looking to do. What are those challenges? What are the objectives? What do they want to do short term? What do they want to do long term? What are their pie in the sky dreams, right? Where do they want to get one day that they haven't quite sort of put something around yet? That really helps us find those solutions and build those long-term relationships that are based on trust and mutual success because they know that we are fully invested in their success. And I think the other part of our strategy that sort of is different from maybe a traditional sales role is the focus that Esri puts on education and support. So, and I would say for us, for like employees, but also for our users, right? So we place a really strong emphasis on education support for our customers. We provide training resources, documentation, support services, consulting support to really help them maximize their investment in our technology. And that commitment to success goes beyond that initial discussion, that initial sale that we make, and extends throughout their entire relationship with us.
That's really, really excellent. And I love how, the experience is not just different for, the people within the team, but it's also different than, clients might expect from a traditional sales team. Mm-hmm. Do you think that the atmosphere is maybe less competitive than people would expect? Or do you think that it's still like competitive, but maybe less cutthroat?
Yeah, I think it's competitive and less cutthroat, right? So we're not commission based, and I think competitive can look a lot of different ways, right? For a lot of different folks, and some folks like really want to close big sales, and that's what motivates them, and that's amazing. Some folks, I'm different. I'm motivated by something a little bit different, and it could be I tend to work with the small to mid-sized customers, so they're a little bit smaller in size, sometimes a little bit more nimble. I like when I can just help them do something better or differently or improve their process. So, I may not have sold or closed a huge deal, but if I was able to help them transform their workflow and take it off of paper and digital, where they can access that easier and everybody in their organization can now, access that information. Like for me, that's what gets me excited. So I think there's competitive in different ways, but I definitely don't feel like it's cutthroat at all here. Which I think is different from other sales organizations you may have heard
and
about.
That's the thing, right? Is like competition looks different, can look very different from, even just like person to person within the same team. And competition isn't necessarily bad. You know what I mean? There are plenty of people that like, they want the cutthroat, they thrive in that. But I think that's why it's important to kind of call out when the situation is maybe not what someone would expect. Because like, I mean, a lot of these questions, if you don't ask them early on, you could find yourself on the team before you realize like what actually you got yourself into. So
Yeah.
yeah, I like this kind of question area we've gotten into here.
Yeah, that's a great point. I mean, I think it's super important to understand like what do you want? Like what's going to connect with you? And then as you're, talking with other organizations about jobs, understanding like what is their culture like? What does that look like? Asking those important questions around quotas, like do people help one another? Or is it sort of like fend for yourself? Like
Mhm.
I would never survive in a fend for yourself type of environment, which is why I think I thrive here at Esri. Like it's if you are a fend for yourself type of salesperson, it actually doesn't work here. Folks really struggle. So
Yeah. Hey, good to know. Okay, so you told us a little bit about some of the ways that the teams, they work in concert. They don't like the sales team isn't just siloed and you don't ever talk to anyone but the sales team. What does that cross-functional collaboration look like to help enhance that sales process? And could you give us like an example of something that you've worked on or a collaboration that you've seen?
sure. So I think at Esri, we work in what we call a team of teams. And what we mean by that is we have teams of individuals, right, who have specific roles and responsibilities within the larger Esri organization. I absolutely, I was going to say, I don't think I could, but I absolutely could not do my job without the support from all of the teams here at Esri, right? So bringing different teams in. And so those teams look like, so I'm on business development. I might bring in folks from our training team, right, to help with learning and education resources. I may bring in folks from our product team to help with a customer engagement. Maybe they've got some feedback about a product, they're experiencing an issue, right? And our product team, wants to hear, I think that's also something unique, wants to hear directly from our users. Um, it really helps us enable a complete understanding of the user's needs. It helps me improve my product knowledge, right? When I'm talking with someone from the product team, like I'm getting a benefit from that. And it helps our product teams hear directly from the customer. It enhances the customer experience, um, and really provides like focused expertise. That really helps, I think, solve problems faster, right? It helps us when we're bringing in folks from different parts of the organization. It really helps us see things from different perspectives and different sides, right? We all have a different lens that we're looking through based on our experiences, maybe the job that we have. And so I know when I go into a customer engagement, um, there are things that I don't even think to ask that folks from our consulting group would ask. And I'm like, man, that was a really good question. I wish I had remembered to ask that. Um, so yeah, I mean, I think it helps us really just improve that customer experience and give our users access to this specialized expertise in these different groups.
Okay. Now I want to still, kind of stay within like the team functionality and stuff within Esri.
Mhm.
But in your position, like you're the sales team lead. What do you think it takes to lead your team effectively? And do you think it's the same as what people would need to lead any team effectively, or do you think this is specifically like what it takes at Esri?
Um, oh, that's a lot. Okay, so keep in mind, I'm coming up on 20 years at Esri, right? So my experience for other organizations is like a little dated. But I think it's really helpful to fully understand the work that your team needs to do to take care of the customers to meet the goals of the business, right? So as a sales team lead, I've got business goals, right? Where I need to grow the business. I've got my own individual goals, and then each one of my team members has individual goals as well. So for me, that actually meant doing the job of an account manager or an account executive for several years before moving into a leadership role. So I did that for probably, I don't know, 7 or 8 years. I was an account manager, so I managed my own portfolio of accounts. And I got really good at that. And I think that was really helpful to understand the job really well. But then to pair that with, I think to be in a sales or any leadership position, really, um, you really also need to have, I think, the desire and the ability to teach someone how to do the job. So I'm sure we have all been in situations where we've had someone that maybe was an amazing individual contributor. They were an amazing at their job. And then maybe they moved into a management or a leadership role and they struggled a little bit, right? I think there's a component of that where you need to understand, like, is that for me, that was something I really wanted to do. Like, I really wanted to teach other people how to do this account management work. I really enjoyed it. I was very fortunate to have a lot of really great mentors that helped me learn the job, that created a safe place for me to be like, hey, so I don't know what to do. Can you help me figure this out? And I wanted to do that on a larger scale, right? With a team that I was building out. So I think, setting clear goals and expectations with them, um, making sure that you're creating a really positive and motivating work environment, right? We spend a lot of time at work. Like, it should be fun. We have a lot of work to do, but it should be super fun, and we should enjoy who we're working with and the things that we're doing. Um, the other thing I think that's important, at least for me and my sort of journey, is leading by example. So I lead a sales team, but I also have my own accounts that I manage. And I think that's important because I'm able to demonstrate kind of the behaviors and the qualities, right, that I'm expecting from the team. And also anything I'm asking them to do, like, I got to be willing to do that myself, right? So I think that's a important component of it as well.
Yeah, I really like you know, becoming a manager or becoming like, leading a team is something that in a lot of situations kind of comes down to like seniority, right? Like who's put
Mhm.
in the years. And I don't know that, I mean, probably now, thankfully, it's starting to be more like this, where management is not just something that you like ascend the ladder into. It's also like, no, it's not just putting in the time, right? You need to learn how to manage
Mhm.
people because it's different than how to be a good employee or a good team
Mhm.
member. And I really like that,
Yeah.
you had mentors that enabled you to do this. Do you think so? I always like asking this question because I know how I learned. Do you think you brought your management style, like kind of developed it more in response to good managers that you've had, or do you think that there
Ah,
were like aspects of that's not the manager I want to be?
both, absolutely both, right? There were things that people I worked for did that I was like, I love that. That was really helpful. One day, if I'm in that role, like, I want to do something like that. And sometimes even not in a formal management role, like, you can still exhibit those behaviors and that support, right? You can be a leader without being in a formal leadership or management role. That is absolutely possible. But I learned a lot from maybe managers that didn't do things so great. And that's probably true for just about everything, right? Like, I learn more from my mistakes than I do from my successes anyway. But there were definitely things I learned that I was like, I will never do that.
Yeah. And honestly, I'm kind of grateful for those moments
It's,
because otherwise it's not necessarily anything where I'm like, oh yeah, it's totally fine to just like, call your team member a name or something. Like, you know what I mean? It's not stuff
yeah.
that's like, oh, well, that's obvious. But it's more like things of like, oh, yeah, I wouldn't handle that way, or I
Mhm.
really wished we had had this conversation 6 weeks prior, or whatever.
Yeah.
So I think you're right. It's interesting to see, like, a lot of the times I feel like you can tell good managers are people that either had bad managers or learn from their mistakes
Mhm.
quickly.
I
um
learned I'd say not one of my best managers I had. I learned a really valuable lesson, and it was, I need to get better about being comfortable with silence. Like, sometimes, and especially in a sales role, right? When you're
oh, that's hard.
asking a customer a question and you just like this, like that dead air that you hear, and you're like, oh, I need to fill it. I should fill it. Like, I should say something. I learned from my experience with that manager, like, sometimes it's okay to just be quiet and just sit with the silence for a minute. And
Mhm.
then usually somebody, and I try not to make it me, will break that silence. And that leads for a really great conversation. So even if you've got, a bad management experience, I would challenge you. There's at least one thing you can take from that's going to help you improve. Or even if it's something like, I wouldn't handle it that way. I don't want to, or that's not the behavior I'd like to exhibit. So I think
Yeah.
all of those experiences are valuable.
Oh yeah, of course. Okay, so when we're talking about salespeople, having been raised by a salesman, um, there are several characteristics that kind of stand out as like you might make a good salesperson if you can talk to a brick wall, if you've really never met a stranger, if there are right, like being extroverted, being like
Mhm.
not necessarily charming, but like being like a people person. There are a lot of these characteristics that seem pretty common. But in your experience, what are some of the characteristics or positive work experiences from the most successful salespeople? Do you think they come from a specific industry? Do they come through a specific path? What have you seen to be most successful?
Um, this may be a little strange, but like I am an introverted salesperson. I know that sounds weird, and you guys are probably thinking like, how is that possible? I love to be engaging. I love to talk to folks, but also like I need to recharge, right? That drains my battery a little bit, and so I need to recharge to do that. So I think it doesn't necessarily. I don't think you have to like classify yourself or think of yourself like, oh, I'm an extrovert, so I would be good at. You can be an introvert and be really good at sales too, right? It's all in how you engage. So I think, some characteristics where I've seen the most successful salespeople. I think being naturally curious, so interested in, at least for us at Esri, interested in the customer's business, what's working for them, what's not. What does that mean if they're not able to accomplish that? How will that impact their business, in a negative way? Are there other things that are going? So just being curious and asking questions and good, thoughtful questions. Um, I think you have to have really good listening skills and not just, I want to clarify, not just listening to respond, but really listening to understand. So I think that's important. So I know we've probably all been in conversations where we're talking with folks and you can sort of see them, maybe they're rocking in their chair or they're leaning forward or those are generally signs that someone's listening to respond, but just kind of sitting back, being in the moment, really understanding what they're asking or what they're asking for, what their challenges are, asking clarifying questions. Can't tell you how many times I've said, now, why is that important to you again? Or what does that acronym mean? Like, I'm not familiar with that. I think being able to ask for help, particularly in our sales culture here, to be successful, you have to be able to ask for help. We have lots of different products. We have our licensing, can be challenging. If you don't understand, you have to be able to ask for help and sort of, check your ego at the door a little bit and say like, I don't really know what I'm doing. I could use a little bit of guidance. And I think the last thing is you have to be able to organize yourself in some way. That may look different for you than it does for me. And that's okay. As long as you can keep yourself organized and on top of what you need to accomplish, you will be fine.
I like that you highlighted natural curiosity because I think that is one of these things that, is not that it's seen pejoratively. I don't think it's I don't think it's necessarily talked about as something that can be developed, right?
Mhm.
Because not everybody is a naturally curious person, and that's okay. You might be the person that's just like, sweet, surface level, great. But I think it's important that when we're talking about it, it's not just something that you either have it or you don't, right? It's
Mhm.
something you can absolutely develop and make more of an unconscious habit of just asking why. Hey, can you
Absolutely.
run that down again for me? Like, I think that's really important. And
Yeah.
truly, like, like you'd said earlier, with being an introvert but still within a sales position, there's a lot of different ways to be a salesperson, right? Like that persona can look a lot of different ways. Not everybody is like a performer when it comes to sales, right? There is a
Right.
performance aspect to it, but not everybody, takes it and makes it the Meg show. So, it really is something that can be learned and can be, like helpful to people, but it's not something that you can never develop if you were not graced with it, naturally.
Uh,
So I like to highlight that for
Yeah.
people, especially with something where people are like, oh yeah, you got to be like naturally curious. It's not that you can't develop it. You absolutely can.
And I think over time, as you find things that are interesting, um, like I find the utilities industry super interesting. And so I ask a lot of questions and our users will talk to us sometimes and the way they're saying something, it's clearly important to them, but I don't know why.
Mm-hmm.
So I have to be humble enough to say, so why is that important, right? So that's that kind of curious of like what why is that meaningful to you? Why is that important? And yeah, and I would say that curiosity, like that are absolute those are absolutely skills you can build. And those are skills you can build not only in a professional setting, right? But out in your personal life as you're, meeting new folks and finding the right questions to ask to try to get information to learn about them and learn, hey, where do we have any common interests, right? So,
Mhm. Yeah, very cool. All right, let's talk a little bit about the client relationship. This is, huge within sales. How do you create relationships with the client as well as drive sales? Those two things can seem not necessarily mutually exclusive, but like they might be at odds in a lot of situations. So what's your experience been like with this?
yeah, so I would say kind of our philosophy here at Esri is, our first priority is to take care of our users, and that can look a lot of different ways. If we're doing that well and we're doing that the right way, like the sales will come, right? That's sort of our philosophy on that. But I think creating those relationships, like you want to build rapport. So you want to take the time, and these things I'm going to share, like, are things that you guys are probably like, I do that when I meet new people, like out at the park or something. Um, so it's not anything, special or super secret squirrel, right? It's just something that, we can practice no matter where we're at in our lives. But building that rapport, taking time um, to get to know folks, right? On a sometimes on a personal level. And I don't mean like being all up in their business, right? And asking them, like, hey, what's in your bank account? Like not that, but like finding common interests, right? Oh, you like to scuba dive too? Me too. Where's your favorite place to go?
Mhm.
Oh, I've been thinking about doing that. Just showing really genuine interest in their needs and their goals and their challenges. And that helps really create that foundation of trust and understanding that's really essential for that kind of strong relationship that you're going to be building out. Understanding their needs, really listening carefully to their specific requirements, their pain points, so that we can then kind of tailor solutions to meet their requirements.
Mhm.
Providing value. I think so, offering valuable insights or advice or solutions. Hey, have you thought about doing it that way? Or I know you said you do this, would you be open to doing something different? So positioning yourself really as this sort of trusted advisor, right, who can help them achieve their goals. And that doesn't necessarily mean that I have all the answers, right? But that may mean that I bring in folks from other teams to help me provide that value to the customer, right? I certainly can't answer all the questions on my own. Um, Communicating effectively, that's super helpful. The value of clear and effective communication. Um, it, it's really hard to put into words. So maintaining that clear and open communication with clients is super important. Being responsive to their inquiries, providing them regular updates on things that are going on, addressing any concerns they have as quickly as we can. That continues to sort of build that trust, right, and demonstrates, hey, I'm committed to your success. I'm as in it as you are. So
Yeah. Yeah. All right, we did get a question from the chat that kind of fits in really nicely in this area of our questions. Antonio had said, I'm a person who has a love for analytics as well as a passion for building genuine relationships. How can you intersect both concepts within sales? All right, so let's talk about this. What role does analytics play in your sales process? And have you seen people combine these in a way that really helps to drive results when it comes to the seller's performance?
yeah, so I think learning, right, when I think about analytics, I think about, learning about my customer, learning about what they're interested in, trying to get a sense of what their goals are, and so almost like a bit of the information gathering you might do right before you meet them. So combining that and sort of understanding um, where I where I think they are, where I think they want to go, and then maybe I've got a vision, maybe I've learned some things, or I've got a vision for them, and I think laying that out for them. So I don't know if I answered that very well, but
No. I mean, here's the thing. I think it's a really good question too, because it does kind of go into the aspect of not necessarily combining sales methodologies, but analytics was not necessarily done to the degree that it can be done
Mhm.
now. And it really depends on, the company you're selling for, right? Because like some companies already have stuff like this in place where they track certain data, and other places, like you said, that are more kind of sink or swim. This might be something that you have to build, or track on your own.
Mhm.
So I think that is really like it's I think it's going to become more and more common, that this is information that is provided as opposed to necessarily information that you have to go out and go looking for.
Yeah.
But it really does kind of point to two of the very extreme examples of like ways you can go, and like tackle sales from, right? That aspect of like just customer facing relationship versus we're going to look at the stats and see what the numbers tell us too.
Mhm.
I think it's a good question. Thank you,
Yeah.
Antonio, for asking this. We do have about 20 minutes left, a little less than 20 minutes left in today's event. So if you have a question, please feel free to send it in the chat. I'm capturing all questions that are asked, and so hopefully we'll be able to get as many of these answered as possible. But please feel free, if you have a question, send it in, so that you don't miss your chance today. All right, this question is, I think this is a really good topic to pursue. This person had wanted to know, what is the best course of action once there's been a loss of faith in a client relationship? So we talked a lot about how building up that faith and trust is so important. What should be done once you realize that relationship might not be as steady or stable as it was?
Yeah, so you obviously want to work towards rebuilding that trust, right? And so kind of one of the first things I do when I find myself in a situation where I think, "Hey, maybe the client's losing faith in me, or maybe faith in Esri or something, or they're unhappy with something." I really take a minute to reflect on the situation and try to figure out what may have caused them to lose faith in the relationship, and identify really any mistakes, or shortcomings on my part, and then quite frankly being willing to take responsibility for them, right, and communicating openly to the customer, and initiating that conversation, and acknowledging their concerns, expressing my commitment to resolving those issues, and then really listening actively to their feedback, and showing empathy towards their perspective, whether I agree with their perspective or not, or whether I see that differently or not. That doesn't matter, right? That is their perception of the situation, and that is really valid and really valuable for me to understand. Um, if there's something I need to apologize for, if I made a mistake, or maybe our organization made a mistake, that contributed to that loss of faith, um, I apologize for it. I offer a sincere apology, right, and take ownership of that situation, and let them know, hey, that's not the experience that we wanted you to have. I'm really sorry about that. Um, then I want to level set, and I want to really understand their needs and make sure that maybe I made an assumption before and I thought something was more important to them than it was. And so maybe I was focusing on the wrong things, right? And so I run a level set with them and really make sure I understand their needs, work with them to create a plan moving forward. And then I think this is really important. Um, Delivering on my promises. So if I say, hey, I'm going to get this to you by such and such a day, like I need to make sure that I'm consistently meeting or exceeding those expectations with them to rebuild their trust and my ability to deliver value to them. And that doesn't mean that I may say, hey, I can get this to you by such and such a day. Maybe something shifts on my side, but I need to be then communicating very quickly with them. Hey, I know I said I could get this to you by Friday. Turns out, the person I need is out of the office. Like, I can get this to you Tuesday. Is that okay? Um, but I think really delivering on those promises, saying, um, because a lot of times in our business, right, in account management, we get busy, things happen, customers ask us for things. We forget sometimes, we're human beings, right? Mistakes happen, and being able to come back and say, hey, I'm really
I'm
sorry, but I'll
sorry,
get that
you
to
make
you.
mistakes.
I
Oh
know,
no.
the shock. But that's it, right? We're all humans. None of us are perfect. We make mistakes. In fact, the folks we're talking to who are frustrated, that have lost faith in us, I'm sure they've made mistakes too, so they can identify with that. And so I think a big part of that for me is just really acknowledging, like, I am so sorry that was your experience. That was not my intent. I want to do better. Here's what I'm proposing. Does that work for you? And then delivering on that and making sure that we're meeting their needs. And I would say, like, rebuilding that trust, rebuilding that faith with them. Um, it requires a proactive effort from your side, right, to do that, and really effective and clear communication, and then a genuine commitment to addressing those concerns. And they're going to feel that, right? If you're approaching it from a genuine and authentic place, they're going to feel that. So
It's palpable. You can tell when someone's kind of giving you lip service of like, oh yeah, I'm so sorry you had that experience and next time it'll be better. Like, yeah, I mean it is very there is a difference there. But when you are actually like letting someone know, I understand your concerns, I hear you, here's how we'll fix it. I think it is really there is a difference there that's
yeah.
it's hard to quantify, but you can feel it for sure.
Yeah. And I think spending that time, like, you may already know how you want to fix it. Oftentimes we do, right? But
Mhm.
giving them that space to communicate to you how that made them feel and what they're concerned about, I think is also really important.
Yeah.
So making sure that they feel heard in that. So
Yeah, of course. Well, and it kind of reminds me of the fact that like, so we, as flawed humans that we are, we tend to judge ourselves by our intentions and other people by their actions. And so if you can kind of flip that a little bit for yourself and think like, okay, I don't know what their intentions were, but maybe they were blah, 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 blah. And then looking at your own, being like, oh, okay, so I said blah, 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 then my actions did not actually follow
mm,
through on that. So I can totally understand why we have a disconnect here.
that's a
Um,
really good point. One of my mentors told me early on in my career, like, no one can see your intentions, they can see your actions. And so I could have the best of intentions, but they can't see. So I think that's also, as we talk about clear communication, like communicating those intentions to them, especially in a situation where you're trying to restore confidence and faith, right, in the work that you're doing or your organization's doing. But yeah, that's something I carry around with me all the time. And I think, like, oh, I didn't really make my intentions known. They can't really see that. All they could see is, like, I didn't get that thing to them on time. Oh, okay.
yeah. Yes. Okay, let's keep moving here. We've got a bunch of questions that just came in the chat, so I'm going to try and feather those in here.
Okay.
But you had said something about a mentor, like you said that this kind of reminded you of something a mentor had told you really early on. Along that same vein, could you share with us something that you know now that you wish you would have known earlier in your career?
Oh gosh, just one thing. There's probably like three. And that's probably being generous to myself. I think the first thing is it's okay to not know the answer. Early in my career, I really wanted to be the person who could solve all the problems and have all the answers. Um, and that's just, it's near impossible, to be perfectly honest, right? And so over the years, I feel like I've become comfortable not having the answers and instead, like, leaning into that curiosity that I have and asking open-ended questions and saying to folks, I mean, I do this on a daily basis when I talk to customers. I don't think there's a day that goes by that I haven't said to someone, I'm not sure about that, but let me take a note and let me find out, and I will get back to you by the end of the day with that information.
Mhm.
So I think that's something, I wish I would have known earlier, that it's okay to not have all the answers.
Well, and that saying like if you're asked a question and you don't know the answer, you don't have to say no. You can say, "No, I actually don't know that yet." Or, "No, you know what? I'm not sure about that, but I'm sure I can find you that information." Or, "I've got a couple people that I'll talk to and blah blah blah." But like, yeah, that there was especially very early on in my career, there was a lot of, "Oh, I don't know. What do I tell them I know and then figure it out, like run to the bathroom and Google something, like what. But truly, like it kind of
Mhm.
it goes with getting that maturity and experience through the workforce before you realize, like, no one knows what they're doing. Okay. Everybody's faking it every second of the day. And anybody that tells you differently is lying because they've never done this day ever before. So, it's just,
Yeah.
once you kind of realize that, like, oh no, we're all faking it, it's a lot more
Yeah.
comfortable. And you're like, oh, okay, so I'm actually just like everybody else. I'm not the worst here because I don't know the answer to the seventh question they asked me this morning.
And I have, in all my years working with our users, I have never had anyone that was like, oh my gosh, you don't know that, and is like horrified by that. They're like, okay, cool, great, thanks. Get me the answer when you can. And it's just releasing that and realizing like, oh, it's okay. It's okay to say I don't know. But I'll find out, and that's
Yeah.
fine.
Well, and that leads into the
Um,
curiosity thing we talked about, right? Is like,
yes.
following that curiosity, both when it's like client directed or, externally directed, or when it's
Mhm.
internal and you're like, oh, I'm actually kind of curious about blah, blah, blah. Like, follow the curiosity. It's that much more likely you're going to find a way into the subject matter that
Mhm.
sticks with you, that resonates, that
Yep.
is, something that makes it real. I really, really like that.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I would,
Oh, please.
no, I was just gonna say one other thing. Like, don't be afraid to make mistakes. Don't be afraid of failure. I haven't learned from my successes a fraction what I've learned from my mistakes. And that teaches you resilience, right? And your career journey, if it's anything like mine, is going to have a lot of ups and downs, and setbacks are inevitable in that, right? There are roles that I was interested in that I applied for that I didn't get. And there were gaps that I had to make up. So developing that resilience and then be able to bounce back from those failures and those challenges and learn from those and be able to persevere, like that's a super valuable skill that really is going to be able to contribute to long-term success. So
Oh, yeah.
that would be the other thing. Like I was afraid to make mistakes early on.
Yeah. Well, especially once you realize like people that are good at whatever they're doing, it's because they made mistakes. Like
Mhm.
we are not wired to learn from success. We learn from failure. And
Mhm.
so if you are looking at someone that's very good at their job, you are looking at someone who made a lot of errors. And that's okay. Like
Yeah.
that we're all going to. So I very much like this. Okay, we do have a couple really great questions. I'm going to
Okay.
try and treat it like a popcorn round. So, let's see. Deanna had asked, what strategies do you use when your sales pipeline is much lower than your sales target, and how much of your day is cold calling?
Hmm. Yeah. So a big chunk of my day is prospecting, right? And so when I think about prospecting, it is simply introducing a new idea to a customer, right? And so maybe that's a product, maybe that's a user story. So I would say, on average, each day looks a little bit different for me, but like I am prospecting every week, right? Because I want to build out that pipeline. And I have an idea of what my close win rate is and how many of those opportunities I'm going to have that probably are just going to fizzle out. So I would say I probably spend 20% of my day if I had to do an average prospecting. Um, Sometimes it's cold calling. If you're going to cold call, be prepared for them to actually answer the phone. That happened to me once, and I was like, oh, I didn't think they'd answer. I guess I got to pull it together right now.
Do you go like full millennial of like, I don't want to talk to a person?
I didn't think they'd answer. I thought they'd send me to voicemail, and I was like, oh gosh, okay.
Truly, truly, truly. It's like, no, we have a social contract. I don't talk to you. Come on, don't make me do this. Let me talk to the robots. Ugh, all right. Great, great responses here. Let's see. Da. Oh, okay. So Bayla had asked us in the chat, and this is also a question that we got asked at registration too. Bayla says, I'm in media sales and I want to pivot into tech sales. What's your advice for career transitioners during the interview process when use cases because of industries are different? So let's talk about this. If you are pivoting from a different field into sales or into tech sales, what should people know about kind of highlighting their relevant skills? Like how can they show
Yeah.
what they've done is applicable?
I would think about the skills that you developed in media sales or whatever role that you're in, and those transferable skills, right? And what are those things you learned? So for us, if somebody was worked customer service at a grocery store, a bag to groceries, right? Like you've got customer service skills. Like you worked
I'm
fast
sorry, you
food.
bagged groceries. Not only were you for a very long time an essential worker on the front lines, but also, yeah, you develop all kinds of customer service. Like
Yeah.
people that are, if you've worked in customer service in any aspect, if you are a teacher or if you are a parent, that
Yes.
almost immediately you can be like, oh, okay, well, they can probably
Yeah.
multitask, not do 87 things at once, but like task juggle.
Yeah.
These are probably people who can organize their day or their schedule. Like, I very much like that.
Yeah, and I would say too, if there's a particular technology area that you're interested in, spend some time to update your knowledge in that area, right? To understand, right? That technology is constantly evolving. So if it's GIS that you're interested in, right, and you're not familiar with it, spend a little bit of time to understand what it is. Maybe take a training class or leverage it to solve a problem. And then networking, I think, within that industry. But my biggest piece of advice would be look at those transferable skills you have because that's going to set you apart. So, here at Esri, we have a unique sales culture. I feel like when we hire folks, like I would, we can teach you how to sell here, right? Because of our culture. So you do not need to come in with those skills.
So that actually, Selena Gaines had asked the same question. Selena says, Esri seems to have a strong focus on geospatial solutions for the healthcare industry. As a customer service manager with a background in clinical research but limited direct sales experience, what kind of training and development does Esri offer to equip new hires for success in this role? So, like you said, that y'all can teach people to sell.
Mhm.
What does that training look like?
Yeah, so it's so we have a really robust onboarding plan, right? That helps folks kind of get up to speed with the skills that they need in terms of selling, or maybe it's industry knowledge, right? Depending on what folks kind of come to us with. But we have a kind of a base camp that new hires go to, right? Where we talk about our sales strategies, and then we really spend time and teach you our sales process and how we sell here. So you'll shadow people who are executing on our sales process. You'll ask questions about that. Eventually, you'll start executing in that sales process, right? While folks are shadowing you. And it doesn't, I know I'm in a sales job. So I just want to say that. Like, I know I'm in a sales job and I have a sales goal, but I do not feel like I'm selling here. I feel like I'm helping our users.
Yeah.
So I think for me, that's what makes the big difference.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I've sold everything from, Victoria's Secret underpants through like, like cocktails. So like
Yeah.
truly the spans the gamut. And it really is, if you can find a connection to either to the mission or the metric of the company, to the thing that you're selling, either, if it's the product, whatever. I mean, like I'm a giant power to fly like billboard pretty much everywhere I go because like I truly do believe in what we do. I do think that we are providing great service to people. Like, so it becomes very easy to talk about and kind of talk to people about like how this website could work for them. Like, hey, have you tried this? And so I think, it makes a ton of sense. Like you said, find something that way that you connect to it. So that way you can help people to find the solution for the problem they have. You're not trying to give them something they don't need. You're saying, okay, how can my services fix some of the issues you're having?
Yes, exactly. And I think it's meeting them where they are, right? And which is the fun part. And sometimes you get to set a vision for them and say, "Oh, I could see a different future for you.
Yeah.
Like hang out with me for a little bit. Let's see if you see that too." So,
Ooh, fun. I like that. Okay, we have 2 minutes left. I do want to say a quick thank you. Kelly, this has been absolutely wonderful. I know you were not prepared to speak by yourself today, but truly you did an amazing job. And, it's very evident how excited you were to talk today, all the prep work that goes into this. So thank you so, so much for sharing your time and your expertise with us. It is invaluable. And I really hope that we get to do this again.
thank you so much for having me and thank you to everyone who attended and the great questions you asked. It helps remind me why I love doing what I do. So, and I'm happy to share that with you.
Oh, heck yeah. I mean, honestly, that's always why my last thank you goes out to the audience members because truly all like having y'all here live, it gives these events more life, obviously, but y'all bring amazing questions and great comments to these events. So it is truly invaluable. Obviously, I love that you come to these events because I have a job because you come to these events, but truly, y'all, like you just took 60 minutes out of your day to do something positive for yourself and your career. And that is not an easy thing in this day and age. So whether you are a little treat person or not, please, listen to Meg, give yourself a gold star, little cookie, pat on the back, whatever it is. Because truly, y'all make these events as special as they are. So thank you all so, so much for joining us today. Now, before I forget, I do want to highlight, don't make sure that you check out Esri's company page on powertofly.com. There are some great resources there. If you are interested and think you might be going into an interview with Esri, I very much recommend you take a look at the About, Cultural Insights, and the events tabs. That'll give you some great stuff to kind of look through, great things that you could mention in an interview or ask questions about that kind of set you apart a little bit. Don't forget to join that follow network if you are interested in Esri. That kind of puts your resume and your profile head and shoulders above the group. And if you have any curiosity about how you can utilize Power to Fly to help in your job search a little bit better, please feel free to write to us. Our email, our help desk inbox is hi@powertofly.com. That's going to be it for us today, but thank you all so much for joining. If this has been your first Power to Fly event, I sincerely hope it will not be your last. But even if if this was your 500th event, I cannot wait to have you join us the next time for another session. Don't forget our summit session, our summit is happening this week, so we've got all kinds of great stuff there. So don't forget to check out some of the other stuff you can register for. Have a nice day, y'all. Go out and have that day that you deserve to have. Bye.